Plenty has happened this weekend, over the weekend in the Championship, in terms of transfer movement, more rumours which have popped up over the last few days, and we've also had a new managerial appointment in the league as well, all of which will be discussed in today's video. As always, if you're going to enjoy, do leave a like and get your thoughts on all the recent ongoings in the comments down below. But without any further ado, let's first of all hop into some managerial talk. So in the end, things have flipped round fairly quickly with Birmingham. They went ahead and departed company with Lee Bowyer and have brought in John Eustace as his replacement. We'll first of all speak about the outgoing Lee Bowyer. This one had seemed to be on the cards for quite some time. You know, upon the final whistle of last season, it was generally thought that Bowyer probably would be moved on, but Birmingham as a club are in a state of limbo at the moment in terms of a potential takeover, the current playing squad, and it was thought that, you know, should there be any movement on that takeover, Bowyer more than likely would be moving on. But the fact that this has rumbled on for so long hasn't helped anyone, certainly Birmingham in this case, and the fact that we're just a few weeks away from the season now and they finally bit the bullet and got rid of Bowyer doesn't reflect greatly on the club's forward planning. You know, this could have been done a hell of a long time ago. But John Eustace is quite an interesting appointment actually, coming in as his replacement. Really highly regarded as a coach, obviously been the assistant manager at QPR under Mark Warburton over these last few years, and he has had a few opportunities previously to go into management as that number one figure. He was heavily linked with the managerial job at Swansea after Steve Cooper's departure, reportedly so. He turned down that job at the time. When the Watford job came up earlier on in the summer as well, he was also linked with that job as well, but in the end he's chosen Birmingham. Now, long term, I actually am quite excited to see what he is like as a manager, as that number one. I think there is a lot of upside to a manager like John Eustace. The way people talk about him and generally speaking, his coaching pedigree. However, he is walking into what seems like a bit of a burning building at the moment in Birmingham and taking on his first, you know, senior job in the EFL. He's walking into what is really a set of tricky circumstances which will be working against him, as the previous managers at Birmingham have found out, and probably more so for Eustace heading into this season. I think at this point in time, Birmingham only have 16 or so contracted players going into this next season. Talk of a takeover is still rumbling on, so there is a hell of a lot of groundwork that needs to be laid out over these next few weeks before the season does kick off, because Birmingham have been tipped to struggle, as we've seen by the bookmakers' odds at this point in time. But I'm excited to see what the future could hold for this one, albeit it is a little bit of an unknown. So Birmingham fans, do let me know in the comments down below what was your reaction to this one. Now let's hop in to some completed deals. So we obviously had the brilliant news of Derby County and that takeover finally going through, and as that has been the case, they have now dipped into the transfer market themselves and they've started registering players for this upcoming League One season, one of which being former Preston North End player Tom Barcusen. He had a few links to other Championship clubs, but in the end has moved over to Derby County. I think this one's a terrific signing for League One, if I'm being completely honest. He did go off the boil ever so slightly last season for North End. Injuries really disrupted his season, and with Preston going to a three-back system, there was no real natural place for Barcusen, who I think does play his best football as a right winger when he's as far up the pitch as possible. But absolutely rapid. I think it'll be a good signing for Derby. Bayo has joined up with Watford in a deal worth up and around £5 million, so not a cheap one here. Watford were expected to dip into the market for another striker, as they were looking quite light in this position, and I'm sure that they will continue to go after some other targets in this area as well. But he's coming over from Ghent in the Belgian First Division last season, scored 11 goals across 19 appearances. Are still quite a few unknowns about him. He had a couple of seasons at Celtic where he didn't quite hit the ground running, but he's 25 years old now, and I'm interested to see what Watford can get out of him next season. Luton have completed a season-long loan deal for Nottingham Forest goalkeeper Ethan Horvath. Once again, Luton going about their transfer business in quite a savvy fashion really, and I'd say that their squad ahead of next season is really starting to come together now. No surprise that they're in the market for another goalkeeper. Obviously Matt Macy previously joining up with the squad as well, but I quite like this addition actually. Obviously Dean Henderson recently came in at Nottingham Forest, so Horvath will be looking looking for first team football next season. Got to see a handful of games from him in the Championship last season as well. 7 appearances for Nottingham Forest, and I thought he looked solid enough during that time. I think this is a good deal for Luton here. As is this one for Stoke City. They've completed a loan deal for Bournemouth youngster Gavin Kilkenny. Obviously, Bournemouth had an absolutely stacked squad in the Championship, so during the second half of the season, Kilkenny's chances in that side were a little bit more few and far between. But start of the season especially, I thought that Kilkenny looked like quite a promising player actually in the middle of the pitch, and Stoke have added a few players of quality into this area now. So yeah, I quite like that addition on the season-long loan. And another quite savvy looking deal from Millwall, as they've picked up Charlie Cresswell from Leeds United on a season-long loan deal. It was thought that Millwall would probably go in for another defender with Daniel Ballard no longer being at the club, and by all accounts Leeds fans are actually quite sad to see him go out on loan for this season. Seems to be really highly rated there. This one looks like a good deal for Millwall over the season. And we've seen Luton complete a permanent deal for Luke Freeman. Freeman is a player who has really lost his way over these last few years. Sheffield United didn't manage to get the best out of him, neither did Nottingham Forest or Millwall. He struggled for fitness generally over these last couple of years, but if there was any manager in the Championship who I thought could get Luke Freeman back fit again and up to his best, it probably would be Nathan Jones, to be honest. So this could turn out to be the perfect fit for what he's in need of at this stage of his career, because there's no doubt that these last few years haven't gone to plan for him, and he has been playing well below par from what we've come to expect from Luke Freeman in the past, because back in his QPR days he was one of the best creative outlets in the Championship. So if Luton managed to get anywhere near close to those levels that he showed at QPR, then they got a terrific player in Luke Freeman. And we mentioned the rumour last time, but Taylor Harwood-Bellis has since completed a season-long loan move over to Burnley as Vincent Kompany continues to take advantage of that Manchester City connection. But guys, there we have some of the recently completed deals which have gone through in the Championship. As always, do get your opinions on them in the comments down below. Without any further ado though, let's hop into the rumours. So it looks as if Sheffield United are on the verge of completing a season-long loan deal for Manchester City youngster Tommy Doyle. I thought he impressed during the second half of last season whilst out on loan at Cardiff. Sheffield United certainly in need of another creative midfielder, and then getting just that in Tommy Doyle. Averaged 1.5 key passes per 90, in the end got 3 assists and 2 goals in 19 appearances for Cardiff in the Championship. Would be a nice addition for the season. And now Admik Hozic seems to be on his way to Sheffield United, as they seem to have fended off interest from Blackburn Rovers, who are also heavily linked with the move for the defender. Really quite a promising player actually. Only 23 years old, he spent last season out on loan at Bordeaux, where by all accounts he did really well, and there seems to be a few million involved in this transfer as well. In previous transfer windows he has been linked with Premier League moves. At one point Chelsea were interested in him. But this I think will be a real statement of intent signing from Sheffield United, who have been a little bit slow off the mark with their transfer business so far, but if this is a means as they're going to go on, this is quite promising for this upcoming season actually. Obviously Blackburn fans will be gutted to miss out on this one, as it seems to be the case at the moment, but if they were circling him, it would suggest that there is money to be spent on this Blackburn squad this summer, which could be seen as a positive for them going forward as they look to move on to other targets potentially. It's looking like Burnley are continuing to strengthen their midfield, as they're now looking to go after Derby County's Jason Knight, one of their most promising up-and-coming youngsters. Really versatile as well, played in an array of different positions last season, on the right, on the left, through the middle. He got 2 goals and 3 assists in that time, and is certainly a player who can be sculpted into something, and it seems like the template under Vincent Kompany is to target these young and up-and-coming players in the EFL. Once again, I think this one will be quite a sensible buy from Burnley actually. Upon his release from Southampton, it's looking like Shane Long could be on his way back to Reading. This one could be confirmed pretty soon. I'm sure that Reading fans are excited about this one. Now, Shane Long has been long rumoured to be returning to Reading. I think that this transfer rumour pops up pretty consistently in every transfer window, but it finally now looks to be on the cards. Now, Shane Long hasn't really played all too much football over these last few seasons. Last season for Southampton, played just 13 Premier League matches, had a brief loan spell at Bournemouth the season before when he had 11 games in the Championship and scored 2 goals in that time. I don't think that Reading are getting the prolific goal scorer Shane Long, who was once at the club, you know, back in 2010 when he popped up with 21 league goals. However, where they are getting a striker with a wealth of experience who could play a decent supporting act role to Lucas João if he was to stay. And Naby Sarr is a free agent at this point in time, and both Reading and Birmingham are considering a move for the centre-half who was at Huddersfield last season. So it seems as if Max Lowe could be on his way out of Sheffield United and to Olympiacos. He obviously spent last season out on loan at Nottingham Forest, and while he was fit was actually a really good player for them, albeit suffered from a couple of injuries during that time. Would be interesting to see what the long-term future is with Max Lowe, whether he will be utilised as an Olympiacos player, or this is a long way of getting Max Lowe back at Nottingham Forest for the season, as obviously the Olympiacos owner also owns Nottingham Forest. And it appears as if Middlesbrough could have identified their #1 goalkeeper target for next season, as they're looking to tie up a season-long loan deal for Manchester City goalkeeper Zack Steffen, obviously USA international as well as Manchester City goalkeeper. There are still a few unknowns about Steffen, primarily because he's not really played all too much football over the past few years that he's been at Manchester City. He's played 21 matches across all competitions in those last 2 years, just 2 appearances in the Premier League, and obviously the one that will stick with everyone in their minds is that a bit of a howling performance he had against Liverpool in the FA Cup semi-final last year. He made a few blunders in that one, but I'm sure that he'll be keen to be playing first team football with it being a World Cup year. And he's no doubt a massive improvement on what Middlesbrough had in this position last season, albeit there are still a few unknowns about him. Several Premier League clubs are currently being linked with a move for Swansea City's Flynn Downs, and it does seem as if Crystal Palace are leading the race for the dynamic midfielder. Big fan of Flynn Downs from last season, really consistent performer in that Swansea midfield, brilliantly tenacious and a really tidy player on the ball as well. And at his age, fits into the profile of players who Crystal Palace have generally been targeting under Patrick Vieira, as he's been looking for a young squad really to come up and grow with him. Initially, so it was reported that Swansea were looking for around about 8 million, but that's since been up to around about 12 million if the recent reports are to be believed. Swansea, I think, standing for just around 1.5 million. So whatever they get for him, it'll be a great return on what they initially paid for him, and you'd imagine that that may then set off a chain of events where Swansea themselves go after a midfielder or two. It appears as if Conor Mahoney could be on his way to Huddersfield upon his release from Millwall. Mahoney's always been a bit of a tricky player to put your finger on, really. Quite similar to a few other Championship wingers who we've discussed in recent videos. Very hot and cold. On his day can be fantastic, but has massive spells of inconsistency, and that's probably how I'd sum up his time with Millwall, to be honest. Didn't really play all too much football last season for Millwall, only played 203 minutes of Championship football for them. The season before didn't play all too much either, with only 4 starts in the Championship, so he needs a fresh start somewhere, and Carlos Corberán has been that guy to sort of get the best out of players like Mahoney, and that was certainly the case last season. And Watford are said to be interested in a move for Peterborough United's Johnson Clarke-Harris. This would be an interesting move. You'd imagine that Peterborough would be looking for quite the price tag in terms of what they'd be willing to sell him for, and Peterborough do tend to drive quite a hard bargain, particularly when it comes to the valuation of their forward players. He scored 12 goals in the Championship last season, which, to be honest, wasn't bad going considering he was playing for a Peterborough side who desperately struggled for creativity throughout the vast majority of the season. In terms of his individual performances, I got the impression that he blew quite hot and cold over the course of the season. It did take him a little bit of time to get going. I think he had that suspension at the start of the season. Didn't seem to be 100% match fit either at the start of the year, which didn't help him. But 12 goals isn't a bad return, like I said, in that Peterborough side, albeit I'm not sure he'd be a striker to fire you to promotion, but who knows. But guys, there we have it. Those are the current transfer rumours which are going around the Championship. If you've seen any others that we didn't mention in today's video, then do get them in the comments down below. As always, do leave a like if you did go on to enjoy, and do stick around and subscribe for some regular content. Thanks for watching though, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.